Good evening. I wanted to have a little talk tonight about ethics in boxing. There's been a lot of talk recently about ethics in boxing and a lack of ethics in boxing. Chris Eubank mainly talking about people not acting with a certain level of respect towards others, bringing the sport into disrepute. He's actually talking about his son, Chris Eubank Jr., and that incident where he, smashed an egg over Conor Benn's head. And then, ironically, Chris Eubank Jr. has just paid out a shitload of money to fighters on a matchroom card that never went ahead and never got paid and lost out on a load of money through training camps and everything else. So I don't know where that fits into it, but to me that's justice defined as actions that other people take on others, on someone else, because they failed to take actions on themselves. So Matchroom not being ethical, paying their fighters, Chris Eubank Jr. being ethical, and being the white knight that his dad's so fond about saying that he's not, So we've all got our own understanding of ethics and what that means, and our ideals are all different. Your ideals are different to mine, and so on and so forth. Ethics are defined as the actions that a person takes on themselves, and is there room for ethics in boxing? Not really. Not when your goal is to knock out your opponent by any means necessary. Compared to the gladiators of ancient Rome, boxing is quite tame. But if you're talking about karate, where you got to score points to win, things like that, yeah, fair enough, you can talk about ethics. But when your goal is to knock out your opponent by any means necessary, there really is no ethics. Don't even come into it, do they? The goal is to win by any means necessary. So when you got that situation in the ring yesterday where Ben Whittaker's apparently spat over someone, it was in the moment, it was emotion, it was in the ring, he's in fight mode, shit happens. If it was outside the ring, fair enough, and the ring needs to be, at least the ring needs to be the boundary of ethics. When you climb out of that ring, you become a gentleman. It's only when you get in the ring do you unleash the tiger, unleash the lion, perhaps it could be said. You see, Customado he wanted to train Mike not just to be a killer, but to also be a gentleman outside of the ring. But he didn't have time because he was dying, and the goal was, apart from becoming the youngest ever world champion, the goal was immortality, not just for Mike but for Cuss, and Cuss was dying. So he didn't have time to put the brakes on. He didn't have time to put the safety mechanisms in. He was a hypnotist. He worked with a hypnotist. He was a hypnotist. He used hypnosis on Mike Daly. He didn't have time to put the safety mechanisms in. They didn't have ethics back then like that in hypnosis. And as a hypnotist, as a hypnotherapist, we have ethics. We have to. People like me and people like Vinnie Shortman and Daniel McDermott and other hypnotherapists, we have to adhere to ethics. And when it comes to boxing, though, your job is to protect your fighter and to help them to win, to remove trauma. So as long as what you're doing is in line with your client's goals, then it could be said you are acting ethically as a hypnotherapist. But that said, I wanted to talk about two things tonight. First of all, I do my best to not work with people that could be affected by what I do in a negative way, i.e. people with mental health disorders and disabilities. I don't work with anybody with a psychosis. In fact, these are the people that I won't work with. People with schizophrenia, psychological personalities, alcohol and drug psychosis, epilepsy, narcolepsy, bipolar, clinical depression, suicidal tendencies, serious heart conditions. If you have any of them, you shouldn't be boxing anyway. If you do decide to listen to my MP3s, then you will notice that my MP3, my box Hypnosis logo, has an 18 certificate. I won't work with anybody. I won't work with any fighters under the age of 18. because their brains are still developing. They don't know about CTE, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, and things like that. You know, when they get older and they can, you know, at that age where it's their responsibility to find these things out for themselves, if they choose to box still, then I'll work with them. And as a hypnotist, you know, I talk about ethics because Cuss always wanted Mike to be a gentleman outside of the ring. He tried to teach him good, but he only had a limited amount of time, and nothing mattered but the goal and the mission to win. However, based on my research, this is what I do with all of my fighters. And anybody that listens to my MP3s from now on will all have this visualization to work with at the beginning, which is kind of like a safety mechanism. It's an ethical safety mechanism. And this is what Cuss would have wanted for Mike had he had a bit more time. But Mike only got to like the first and the second stage. So basically, before you begin, I want you to close your eyes if you're not driving or operating any heavy machinery, and just take a deep breath in through your nose and close your eyes and visualize a red button and a green button. The red button means stop and the green button means go. Just take another deep breath in through your nose and out through the mouth. Now, every time you work with me, every time you listen to one of my hypnosis tracks, what I want you to do is I want you to put on your boxing gloves and lace them up and visualize that green button for go. Okay? So when we do the work together, when you listen to MP3s and we do the work together, we're building something which we call a part. We call it parts therapy. We call it ego state therapy. We're building a part in your ego that is going to help you to win. Okay? That part might be a little bit animalistic. It might be a little bit detrimental to your life if you're outside of the ring. But when you're inside of the ring, it's going to help you in an ethical way. And I want you to put on your gloves and visualize that green button of go, as that symbol to listen and work with me. And then when we're finished, I want you to visualize that red button, push that red button and see that red button going down. That red button means stop. Just take a deep breath in through the nose and out through the mouth. And when you push that red button, you take off your gloves, and none of the suggestions will have any effect on you. Green button for go, red button for stop. Gentleman or animal, you choose. Thanks for listening. Until the next time.